Hey, what's going on, guys? Richie Fix here, back with another video. And what do we have here? Juhn from Jada Toys is back on YouTube. Not only is he back on YouTube, he's back with the Toy Migos, as they've been covering some of the other properties that Jada's been doing. But today was the day that they covered Street Fighter. And man, did they cover Street Fighter, as we get a full-blown 20-minute interview talking nothing but Street Fighter. So what are we going to do today? We're basically going to do a short recap of that and basically give you the cliff notes of that interview. But before we do that, I do recommend that you also go watch the video in its entire on the Toy Migos YouTube. I will leave a link to their channel in the description below, along with the link directly to that interview, so you guys can see everything. Because I'm not going to cover everything, because there are a few things in here that he already covered at San Diego Comic-Con and things like that. But man, there was actually some very interesting things in there. We get a lot of information, and I'm here to break it all down. Let's go. Yes, Juhn is back on YouTube and back with the Toy Migos, and man, brings back good memories, as this is really how the whole Jada Toys Street Fighter saga began, as he was doing these interviews with the Toy Migos. It felt like every 2 or 3 months he was stopping in on one of the live streams, kind of laying down the late and great and breaking news on what was going on with the Street Fighter line, and kind of giving inside looks on progress on the different figures and things like that. But as you well know, that, you know, another competitor did enter the arena, Storm Arena, in the figure line, and I just feel like with that competition now, you can't necessarily always be going on and giving away your next move, because, you know, you got other people watching now. So I do understand the reasoning for the slowdown, and obviously they've taken on new licenses from the beginning since then. I mean, they've added Scooby-Doo, Cyberpunk, Invincible, and the list goes on. So it does make sense that he probably doesn't have as much time to do those now anyways. But we do get a full 20-minute sit down here, and they had the questions all queued up. And what was the big one that I took away? And like I said, we're going to cover the cliff notes here, and I do recommend that you do go watch the full thing, because I'm not going to cover everything, but we are going to cover the big ones. And then one of the big ones that really stood out is that Target actually ended, or the contract dropped, Jada Toys for the rest of this year. So you're not going to see any more future restocks from what it sounds like. It sounds like the last figures that they ended up taking in were SAGAT and BLANKA, and that was it. Now, for those that ended up seeing them, great. I never ended up seeing BLANKA or SAGAT at my Target. So Juhn had mentioned in the past that, you know, Target decides on what stores actually end up getting Jada Toys. They just sell, you know, the inventory to them, and then they distribute them as they please. But it was very interesting to know, and that I kind of had that feeling, because I really haven't seen a Jada restock, it feels like, for at least 2 or 3 months now. You know, well before summertime, and it sounds like that's about the time that things ended, because SAGAT and BLANKA was right before the summertime, so that would make sense. But it does sound like, no fear there, that Target does sound like they will be picking it up again come the start of next year. I don't know if that starts exactly on January, or, you know, Q1 or what have you, but Juhn did mention that they were starting to pick that back up again. So it doesn't sound like it was for long, more just a temporary thing. If anybody knows, I mean, Target's freaking collector aisle, it's a mess. They've got too much shit going on over there as it is. So maybe they just thought, you know, someone had to go, and I guess Jada was that person, which is crazy, because I felt like all their figures pretty much sold pretty well. But, you know, at least they are starting again next year. So that's pretty cool. But where Target fell off, it seems like Walmart has picked that up, as I have seen a tremendous amount of Jada figures really starting to hit Walmart. It started off with just Wave 1, and then gradually I ended up seeing Ken and M. Bison, but now I'm really starting to see the figures, as we ended up getting the Target exclusive not too many days ago, the Blue Guile, put up on Walmart, and it's restocked twice now, I believe. So keep an eye out for that Blue Guile on Walmart. I do think they're going to try and keep getting that restock, because Juhn was well aware that people were having a hard time finding that Blue Guile, and this made more sense, right? Like Blue Guile, Walmart, Blue. I never really understood the whole Blue Guile to Target anyways. That's not really their forte, as they tend to mess with the red figures, hence the red Chun-Li. So I don't really know where Blue Guile fell in the mix with that to begin with anyways, but Walmart is really starting to ramp up their Jada selection, as I was just at a Walmart last night that had Dulcim, M. Bison, Guile. I know people have seen Cammy, DJ, so they're really getting caught up with things quick. So keep an eye at your Walmarts and then Target early next year. And then another big one, which we kind of heard from San Diego Comic-Con, but Honda is not far behind. So it sounds like we should be getting that pre-order before the end of this year. And then Balrog and Sagat should be hitting sometime towards the end of this year. Not from your major retailers like Big Bad Toy Store, Walmart, Amazon, things like that. But it sounds like from the AliExpress, eBay, Chinese vendors, which if you know, you are going to pay a little bit more of a higher price tag on that. So if you're not, if you are not someone that's just an absolute fanatic and have to have these things right away and you can wait it out, I would wait it out because, I mean, the figures, when you get them from those vendors, tend to run higher. I mean, we're talking like $50 to $70. So if you're not trying to spend that on a Balrog or an AKUMA, then I would just say, Q1, it sounds like it's going to be either late January or early February that you should be able to get those. And then Honda probably won't be too far behind. I would probably say March-ish, April-ish, maybe May. I don't know. Probably around the same time VEGA that we got this year, if I had to guess. And then he did mention that the last 5 figures are a 1.5 body. So everything leading up to not VEGA, I don't think VEGA was included in that. I think it was Honda, T-Hawk, Zangief, Balrog, and AKUMA are on the 1.5 body. So what does that mean? It's got updated butterflies and just updated articulation. So you're going to notice the butterflies go crazy on these new figures. And then the 2.0 bodies are going to start with the Alpha line. As you guys have seen, they've totally restructured the way they do the articulation things, and he said that should spread across the entire Jada line, not just Street Fighter, but all new Jada figures moving forward will be on that 2.0, but he said these figures right here, these last 5, are going to be on the 1.5 body. But with that being said, AKUMA is the last regular figure from the 5. So what does that mean? The last $30 figure, the last standard size figure is going to be AKUMA. The rest are deluxe figures. So Honda, T-Hawk, Zangief, Balrog are all going to be deluxe. And what does that mean? $34.99. So don't sit there and be like, oh, they raised their prices. No, that's what their deluxe figures go for. So again, for those that, because I always get somebody that says, oh, why is there 34? All the rest of them, besides AKUMA, are going to be the $34.99. So again, that's Balrog, Zangief, Honda, T-Hawk, and that's it. So, and that should finish out the roster. And as far as finishing out the roster, he did mention this again. We did hear this at San Diego Comic-Con. It looks like he's going to try and finish this up. It should finish up around Comic-Con of next year. Now, I wouldn't be shocked if that spilled over into third quarter. As far as like early October for like Zangief and T-Hawk. I mean, if we're just going off like the pattern of this year, because it sounds like it's pretty much on the same schedule as this year as far as Sagat and BLANKA hit, Q1, January, February, just like the Balrog and AKUMA are expected to. And then VEGA, not being far behind, hit around that early springtime. And then as far as the last 2 figures, those should hopefully hit in Q3. I mean, hopefully. And then I don't know if they didn't talk anything really alpha. We got no alpha questions, which I'm still dying to hear that with this new articulation that you're seeing on these alphas, as you see on the screen right now, if they are going to come with the new price tag. I don't know if that was, instructed by them not to really cover that. That now makes me think, why didn't they ask anything about Alpha 3 really? Right? I wonder if that was on purpose, because you would think that, they'd ask Juhn ahead of time if there's any questions that are off the table. And, we didn't hear anything about Alpha other than they were using the 2.0 bodies. But they did say, I'm kind of thinking like, wow, maybe they aren't going to move forward with Alpha. But, it wasn't so long ago that Juhn decided that they are going to do that. So, but I do find it odd now that they didn't mention really anything about Alpha 3. But I guess they really just wanted to focus on the bright spot, and that's finishing this roster. So, one thing that was mentioned as we kind of finish up the 1.5 bodies, which is going to be on these last 5 figures here, is that they did ask if they ever planned on going back and updating some of the older figures from Wave 1. So if they thought about bringing the 1.5 body, because obviously the 2.0 body Ryu, they're not going to just redo all of Street Fighter Ultra 2 to catch everything up. but they did ask if they were planning on going back to maybe Ryu and Ken and giving them that 1.5 body, or Fei Long or Chun-Li. And he said that it would just take far too long. It would basically be like rebuilding an entire new figure, where he said he'd just rather focus on building a whole new character, where you're gonna get Ken and Ryu and Chun-Li eventually in the Alpha line anyways, and Ryu's already slated, and Chun-Li are immediately slated for the first wave of that anyways, that he said it just would be not worth it and take too long to go back and update that. So he said, and basically what he said, once Street Fighter Ultra 2 is finished and the last player 2s and the roster is finished, he's not going back. We're not going back and revisiting Street Fighter Ultra 2 to any degree. It sounds like he's accomplished that mission. It's off the bucket list. The roster is complete and we're moving on. So I mean, he sounded pretty firm about that. It sounds overly done with Street Fighter Ultra 2, so he's ready to move on to bigger and better things, which I don't blame him. It's been a hell of a journey, so I don't blame him that he wants to continue on there. And then, yeah, I mean, that's really it. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot new, but there was, again, more new stuff that we're hearing. As far as, I found it very interesting that Target ended up dropping them, which was speculated, but we had never gotten that confirmation before. And yeah, it does sound like that the rest of the figures are going to be deluxe, outside of AKUMA being the last standard figure. And was there anything else here? Honda's not far behind. The pre-order should hopefully hit this year. And then if I had to guess, it's going to say Q2 for the release date on Honda. I don't feel like they're going to squeak that in with Q1 releases like Balrog and AKUMA, but I'm fine with that. Other than that, there's just not a lot there, but for a 20-minute interview, it was really good and refreshing to kind of hear the ins and outs. But now I am, like, a little bit curious why they didn't touch Alpha at all. Like, there was no speak of Alpha, so interesting there. I don't think I might be reading too much. I'm probably reading too much into that. I think they really just wanted to cover that the roster was finishing up. It does sound like they are going to get a lot of player 2s in. He talked about player 2s. One of the things I didn't have in my notes, but I am remembering now, that he did mention more player 2s are coming. But again, he said those are more just fillers in between the waves. So there's still product of new coming out in between then. And then they did obviously talk about the car. Again, he seems not interested. I don't know if he ends up caving on that and doing the car. But yeah, he's said many times he just doesn't want to do the car, that there's bigger fish to fry within Ultra that they can do other than the car. But, you know, they have no problem still bringing it out. And I appreciate the consistency, because I know a lot of people do want that car. So very cool there. But other than that, that's it. That was a big interview with Juhn. Again, I can't recommend and encourage you enough to go watch the full interview in its entirety. It's about 20 minutes. If you don't want to sit there and actually watch them, it's great podcast fodder. You don't necessarily, I mean, they're all just sitting there on their webcams anyways. It's not like they showed images or anything. So just throw that puppy on, give it a listen, give it a like. Make sure, if you guys are not, that you do go ahead and give the Toy Migos a follow, a subscription, notifications on, all that good stuff, as they always get the great inside scoop with Juhn and have a great relationship there. But it was refreshing to hear more news about Jada Toys. As you know, it's kind of a bummer to hear that 2025 was all wrapped up after this silver cami. It sounds like we might get an Honda pre-order, but other than that, you know, it sounds like it's been a little bit of a rough year for Jada. And they didn't go into any detail or anything but Chaney did you know, say it's been, you know, an interesting year, a rough year for them. I don't know if Juhn had something. It almost made it seem like Juhn might have gone through, like, maybe some personal issues or something. That's just what it seemed like. I have no idea. They didn't cover anything like that, but it does seem like, nonetheless, that it was not the smoothest of sailing this year. And hell, it hasn't really been for any company, but they might have hit more snags than others with shipping and things like that. So, you know, unfortunately, that is the breaks, but it's not really stopping them from moving forward, and that's what you want to see. You want to see that resilience and that effort from the company, which they're going to do. So, other than that, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this little recap, and it was good to hear from Juhn and the Toy Migos, as it brought back good nostalgia back to the good old days when this whole line started, and we're about here at the finish line. So, other than that, guys, I'll keep you updated if anything should come about related to Jada Toys, and, well, that's it. I'll see you on the next one. Richie Figs. Later.